My name is Ava. I'm 28 years old. I met my husband James in my college days, and we've been married for 4 years. I'm quiet and not very outgoing, while James is the opposite. He's friendly and has lots of friends. We started talking in college classes and began studying together. I never thought someone popular like James would date a simple and unnoticed person like me. But he did ask me out, and I was very happy and said yes. James is handsome and nice. He was also serious about his studies. I always wondered why he chose me, someone who wasn't very confident or stylish, over his other friends who were pretty and fashionable. One day, I asked him if he really thought I was the right one for him. He looked surprised and asked why I was asking. I told him I was just curious why he picked me to be his girlfriend. He thought for a moment and said he felt comfortable with me. When I seemed not satisfied, he got a little annoyed and asked if he had to list all the reasons he liked me. I didn't want to make him upset, so I quickly changed the subject. Time went by fast. We finished college, got married, and moved into an apartment. I found a job at a regular company, and James continued his studies at graduate school. When I told my mom about getting married, she was really happy. My parents had thought I would introduce a boyfriend to them earlier. I apologized for not telling them about James sooner. They were happy that I had someone to support me. My parents met in a job, and they love each other a lot. My dad worked hard and became a big boss. My mom worked at a software company before, but after marriage, she focused on housework. Now, she's famous for her cooking and teaches classes. They always respected each other and were independent. Growing up with them, I learned to be independent too. I didn't go for more studies after college because I wanted to start working and live on my own. I grew up in a rich family, but I didn't want to depend on that forever. I wanted to make my own family like my parents did, have children, and make my parents proud. It seemed like a simple dream, but it wasn't easy, especially for someone shy like me. After we started living together, I noticed James was becoming more selfish. He started wanting things for himself, like the fancy SUV my parents gave me. He said it was wasted on someone plain like me. He even mentioned his parents wanted a new SUV car. This made me feel hurt because I had been putting up with his selfishness for a long time. But wanting my special SUV was too much. James was a graduate student and worked part-time, but he didn't really help with our living costs. One day, I gently asked him if he could use some of his part-time money for our expenses. He replied coldly, saying he did contribute, and reminded me that I had agreed to handle the living expenses when we moved in together. James always wanted to be a manager, and that's why he was in management school. When we decided to get married, I told him not to worry about money and to focus on his studies because I had a good job. But now I hesitated to remind him of this. He sighed and said I wouldn't understand the expenses of being a management student, like going out and socializing. Then he mentioned needing $1,000 for a research trip and asked if I could lend it to him. After that, James often asked for money, and our problems grew. He started spending more nights out, and I would wait for him, often in front of uneaten dinners. When he did come home happy, I was too lenient. He would make plans suddenly or compliment my cooking. His kindness made me hope for an ideal married life, but I felt lonely and anxious. I didn't tell my parents because I didn't want to worry them. They were so happy about our marriage. But when I visited them after a long time, my dad suggested I stay the night for a change. That night, Mom made a lot of delicious food. Dad said my Aunt Emily had visited and wanted to see me. Emily is lively, ambitious, and independent. I used to talk to her about things I couldn't tell my parents. She understood me well and supported me. I hadn't told her about James at first. A few days after visiting my parents, I met Emily at a restaurant. She's a fashion designer and looked very stylish. She told me that marriage is just the start of life's challenges and that clothes can transform a person. She advised me not to neglect myself. I apologized for not staying in touch. Emily said it was typical of me to be honest and serious, but my timidity came from a lack of experience. She was happy when she heard I had found someone special and thought it was a big step for me. Emily always encouraged me to be confident and to take care of myself. Her words reminded me that I had been neglecting myself lately, focusing too much on trying to make my marriage work. I realized I needed to take care of myself too, not just my relationship with James. This conversation with Emily made me think. I started to understand that being in a marriage didn't mean losing myself. I needed to find a balance between supporting James and taking care of my own needs and happiness. This realization was important for me. It was a step towards finding my own voice and confidence in my marriage. I knew I had to make some changes, both for myself and for the health of my relationship with James. It was time to start setting some boundaries and taking care of myself, just as much as I cared for our life together. I had met Emily outside on my day off. The weather was perfect. We sat on a garden with warm sunlight shining down on us. I felt comfortable enough to share my worries with Emily. I told her how I thought I could make things work with James, despite being shy, but now I wasn't so sure. Emily listened to everything I said, just nodding kindly. When I finished, she asked if I had told my parents. I admitted that I hadn't, and that I had even hesitated to tell her. I wanted to be independent and thought I should handle this alone. I knew my parents would want to take me home if they knew about my troubles, but I wanted to try to manage by myself. Emily understood and didn't push me. She told me that if I ever needed help, I should ask her first. She promised to come to me wherever I was. A month later, my mom called and asked me to visit. When I got there, I saw a new sports car in the driveway. My dad teased me, asking if I wanted to drive it. I was worried about crashing such a fancy sports car, but he said it was for me and that I should use it as I liked. Mom whispered that they got it because I once said it was cool on Billboard, and they wanted to cheer me up. They said I could drive home anytime if things got too hard. The car was a sport car from a famous foreign brand, and Dad had even arranged a parking spot near my condo. Later, driving downtown, I pressed the car key and the lights flashed. Then I heard a familiar voice behind me. It was James, who hadn't been home in a while. He seemed surprised by the sports car and said he guessed I got it for my parents. Whenever I was with James, I struggled to speak up, but I was tired of feeling that way. I told him it didn't matter to him and that he probably didn't care about me anymore. Then James said something shocking. He asked if I just realized that he never really loved me and laughed at the thought. James's harsh laugh rang in my ears, and something inside me broke. I asked him loudly why he married me. He said it was because my family was rich. He thought marrying me meant he wouldn't have to worry about money for a while. He also wanted my sports car for his parents, saying it was like doing two good things at once. He was blunt, saying if I didn't give him the car, we would get divorced. He warned me to think hard because without him, I might not find another man. These words left me feeling angry and sad. I had a terrible headache and struggled to breathe. I sat in the car, trying to calm down. Then I called my Aunt Emily. A few days later, I agreed to the divorce and moved back to my parents' house. They welcomed me warmly, and life started to feel peaceful again. But a week later, James showed up at my parents' house with his parents. They came into the living room, and James's dad said they needed to talk about the divorce urgently. He said I had threatened James, telling him I would ruin his future if he didn't agree to the divorce. He accused me of being mean and greedy, and said they might take this to family court. They suggested that if I gave up the car, things might be easier. James stayed quiet while his parents talked. Then the doorbell rang. It was Emily. She came in, and James's family was surprised to see her. They told her to leave, but she stayed, saying she was there for her niece. James's parents accused Emily of coming for money or to stop the divorce. Emily then pulled out a stack of documents. She spread them on the table, showing everyone. The documents were evidence of James's behavior. They proved that he had been using me for my money and had lied about many things. Emily had gathered these documents to protect me. Emily explained that she had been investigating James for a while. She had suspected something was wrong and wanted to make sure I was safe. The documents included bank statements, messages, and other proof. She said that if James's family tried to take this to court, she would use these documents to show the truth. James's parents were shocked. They looked at the documents and then at James, who was now looking worried. Emily told them that if they continued with their threats, she would make sure everyone knew about James's actions. My parents, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. They said they had always wanted the best for me and would support me no matter what. They thanked Emily for helping me and said they were proud of me for standing up for myself. After a long discussion, James's parents realized they had no choice but to accept the divorce. They apologized for their behavior and left with James. I felt a huge relief. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control over my life. Emily's support and the truth coming out made me realize that I was stronger than I thought. I was grateful to have such a caring aunt and parents who stood by me. After James and his parents left, we all sat down and talked about what had happened. My parents and Emily reassured me that I had done nothing wrong and that I deserved to be treated with respect. They said I should never let anyone treat me badly again. This experience taught me a lot. I learned to be more careful about who I trust and to stand up for myself. I'd also realized the importance of family and having people who care about me. I felt stronger and more confident. Emily stayed with us for a few days. We spent time together, and she helped me rebuild my confidence. She encouraged me to focus on myself and to do things that made me happy. I started to feel more like myself again, and I was grateful for her support. As time passed, I began to move on from what had happened with James. I focused on my job and spent time with my family and Emily. I also started to take better care of myself, remembering Emily's advice about not neglecting my appearance and confidence. I got a detective to check on James. It turns out, even though we were married, he was seeing other women. He hardly came home because he was busy with them. He used my kindness to do whatever he wanted, even asking for money. James said it wasn't true and that he was just busy with his university work. When he did come home, we did things together like a normal married couple. But his dad said James didn't have to explain. They knew he wouldn't cheat. James's mom said the papers must be lies. They said James was a good son, but Emily showed them photos. She had seen James at a hotel with another woman and got the detective to find out more. The results confirmed what she suspected. James's mom was shocked when she saw the photos. She asked James's dad, John, what he was doing. John tried to grab the papers, but it was too late. James's mom, Sarah, was upset and left the house crying. John went after her. James was confused and followed them out. We were all silent for a while, but Emily looked pleased. She later told me James's parents did get divorced. She said she'd teach me how to be more confident and attractive. A year after the divorce, Emily visited me often. She took me places and taught me a lot. I decided to go to graduate school and work